So, the latest games for Pokemon have been announced. Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. And much like the leaks have stated, I'm a little on the fence about this. Now, being a die-hard Pokemon fan, I'll probably purchase one of these games. I'll probably go with Eevee version, since I've been a fan of Eevee more than Pikachu. Damn rat. However, there are issues that I hold with the games, but there are things I like. So this is a small little draw-on rant that I figured I should do, and actually get some content out to you guys while I work on a larger video. Con number 1. Only having the first 151 Pokemon in it. Despite what people like to say, I'm not the biggest fan of the first generation, even though I've been with the games ever since the first games came out several years ago. And I wouldn't have much of a problem with it just being straight up the 151. That's what they did with Pokemon Go. But the problem is, they're also having a Alolan Pokemon in it. Which I can only assume is the Alolan form, since Pokemon Go recently released Alolan Pokemon in the form of Alolan Executor. And I'm thinking, why? If you're going to put Alolan Pokemon, why not have a few more Pokemon from other generations in the game as well? There were complaints about how Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, Black, and White didn't have older generation Pokemon in them, or at least didn't have as much as them. Even though that's wrong. So why is it okay to completely ignore the rest of the roster for this? This is even more puzzling since you can interact with the Pokemon Go, and since this has up to Gen 3 Pokemon in it, why not allow it to do that? I suppose you're not going to be allowed to transfer those Pokemon into it, but then you have Alolan Pokemon that... Well, let's go on to a pro. The aesthetics. I do have to admit that the games do look amazing, and I'd be lying if I didn't want to ride on an Onix. I prefer Steelix, but hey, it's still pretty awesome either way. And throwing the fact you have Pokemon following you is even better. They're really stepping up the aesthetic value of the games, and I hope that when the actual core game comes out, they include these features in it as well. And it's something that people want to see on a Switch title. The only thing I'm not a fan of is the choice of how to make the characters look, like the actual human characters. I didn't really care for the more chibi look in X and Y, and it kind of feels like a bit of a downgrade of Sun and Moon, but at least from what I've seen, and hey, that's just me nitpicking at that. You can even dress up your Pikachu and Eevee in this, and customizing Pokemon with little trinkets is something that I've always wanted to see in a Pokemon game. Yeah, it's a dumb little feature, but hey, it's still something I want to see. And I hope they actually bring back trainer customization as well. Con number 2. Catching Pokemon. The one thing I really didn't care for from what we're told is catching Pokemon. You don't battle the Pokemon. Yeah, they decided to go for the more Pokemon Go route. Now, you can battle trainers, and if that's the case, I hope you can battle the trainers more than once in the game. Otherwise, that's going to be a bit of an issue here for training your Pokemon up. And I'm not really a huge fan of the Pokemon Go catching mechanic. Pro number 2. Co-op. If there's one thing I've wanted to see in a Pokemon game, it's being able to play with your friends. After all, one of the core messages of Pokemon that likes to shout out to the heavens is friendship. So having this feature really seems like a good call to add. I'm a little shaky on how this will actually work in the game, but hey, we'll find out. I do want to do more with my friends other than just battle against them or trading, and this is something that actually might look actually pretty good. Con number 3. Going back to Kanto. Again. Like I said in my first con, I'm not a huge fan of Generation 1, and the fact that the past few generations, and throughout the entirety of the Pokemon franchise, Kanto has been a prominent part of the games, and I'm kinda getting sick of it. Luckily, we're getting a core game of Pokemon on the Switch next year, that's been confirmed, but I'm getting sick and tired of having Kanto being shoved down my throat, and I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking that. I understand why they want to do it, they want to apply to nostalgia, but there are ways to do it without having Kanto be shoved down every single title. Pro number 3. No more random encounters. One thing I do have to give major props for is that you can see the wild Pokemon on the screen and you don't have to battle them if you don't want to, you just gotta dodge them. And in fact, yeah, that's actually pretty cool. This is something that you see in other RPGs, and I love that it's finally in a Pokemon game. Not only that, it actually makes the world actually, livable and actually looks like it's alive, that we see these creatures actually roaming about in the wild more. We got a little bit of that in the previous games, but this is something that I really enjoy. Con number 4, worries. And the last thing I'll bring up is worries that I hold with this whole thing. What about Pokemon Bank? Will you be able to transfer these Pokemon that we get in these games to the core games next year? Will Pokemon Bank be able to work with Switch? If these games are based on Pokemon Yellow, does that mean that we won't be able to evolve Pikachu or Eevee, and that we'll be stuck with them as our main partners? Don't get me wrong, I like Eevee, but I would like to see having it have an evolution with this. Same thing with Pikachu. I mean, I want to be able to make it work. How will the stats of Pokemon be applicable from Go in these Switch games? Will we be able to transfer our Gen 2 and 3 Pokemon to them in the future? I would hope so. Apparently EVs aren't in the game, effort values, so are they going to be determined in other games so we can transfer these Pokemon? Will each version just have their own separate Pokemon rosters? There are a lot of questions about these games I have, and I'm sure you guys do as well, so let me know in the comments what you think. What are your pros and cons with the games? Do you like them? Do you hate them? I personally am a little bit on the fence with them. I still want to buy them and see how they play, but at the same time, Any case, I'm Common, and remember to examine your fandom.